Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Transgender Zone podcast. I'm your host, Victoria Rose. I'm a 27-year-old woman of transgender experience and founder of Transgender Zone. We are the first ever trans-owned, trans-only online learning community where you can find real friends, get live expert guidance, and make serious progress in your transition. I am beyond excited to bring you a conversation today with someone whose work has literally saved thousands of lives. Bamby Salcedo is the CEO and founder of the TransLatin Coalition, or TLC, which is the largest trans-owned organization in the nation. They serve over 8,000 people annually. From surviving homelessness, incarceration, and assault and immigration detention to building a movement that secured millions in funding and policy victories, Bamby's journey embodies what she calls radical love as resistance. Bamby's on a press tour right now for the TransLatin Coalition's 11th annual GARRAS Fashion Show, held on November 15th in West Hollywood at the Pacific Design Center. This isn't just any regular fashion show. Last year, they raised over $300,000, and it provides a powerful counter-narrative to violence by celebrating trans lives during Transgender Awareness Week. At Transgender Zone, we're all about creating spaces where trans folks can connect, learn, and thrive together. And honestly, what Bamby's built with the TransLatin Coalition mirrors so much what we're trying to create online in the physical world. So whether you're in California, you can grab tickets to GARRAS, or if you're joining us from anywhere in the world, please join me in a lovely conversation with Bamby Salcedo, founder of the TransLatin Coalition. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I am joined today with Bamby Salcedo of the TransLatin Coalition. How are you doing today, Bamby?
I am blessed that I get to be alive today. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and much love and appreciation to all the listeners and all the people who are watching.
Thanks, Bamby. So, let's jump into it. Let's start with the fun stuff. So, GARRAS, I kind of already briefed our listener on what GARRAS is. This is your 11th annual fashion show, and last year you raised $300,000. Congratulations, with over 700 people. That's amazing. For anyone who's never been, can you paint us a picture of what someone experiences when they walk into GARRAS? Like, what's the vibe? What's the energy like?
We always try to portray beautiful and exciting and, just energy that like really uplifts people, right? And so GARRAS is a big production. Once we open the doors, people come in and like some people mingle. We do have a reception for our sponsors and our VIP guests. But as soon as you walk in, the music is already pumping, and, you feel the energy and the love and the empowerment of our people as one walks in. And right before the show starts, obviously there's different things going on all at once. But once the show starts, it really is amazing because it's, we always try to have like really great performances, to set the tone, right? Like for what is going to come. And this year is definitely not going to disappoint.
I'm so excited to see some footage. I've looked through past years and clips and photos, and the energy is really contagious. Even just seeing it on screen makes you want to get up and party too.
Yes, that's the whole idea, because GARRAS is a celebration of our community. It is a place where we intentionally uplift the livelihood of our community, even if it's just for a couple of hours, right, while the show is taking place. But, especially in these moments, right, that we're experiencing as a community, it's important that we not just acknowledge our community, but also that we send a message, right, that we will continue to be who we are, that we have places to celebrate ourselves, and regardless of what's happening and regardless of what people are saying about us, we're still going to be the beautiful people that we are.
I know that's right, Bamby. And there's something magical about being in a room with your sisters, your brothers, sisters, siblings, because we're such a small percentage of the community that when we actually get to see each other and like be in each other's presence, it just raises that power so much. I know, like with your drop-in center, a physical space, that's incredibly valuable. And even on a virtual space, like on Transgender Zone, when we're in our live sessions, for example, like our group vocal coaching lessons, being able to see each other in the same place and like watch each other grow, live vicariously through them and share the ups and downs, it is such a monumental feeling, because community is such an important aspect of just life in general, and especially in a marginalized community. I love that you created GARRAS specifically to celebrate trans lives while we're still here and not just mourn us when we're gone. And this is contrasting the Transgender Day of Remembrance. That's just such a powerful reframe. So what made you realize that we needed that kind of celebration, and what made fashion become the vehicle from it? I actually have a background in fashion. I have a business degree in fashion, so it's a big passion of mine.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, right, for our community, trans and queer people, the arts is something that is very important to us, right? Because it's a way to express ourselves, right? But so that's one piece of it, right? Giving and also giving the opportunity for, upcoming members of or members of our community who are upcoming designers, right, to have a platform for them to showcase their art, right, and also to, to showcase our community, right, because this is a space that is different than the traditional fashion spaces, right? As you know, all transgender, expansive, intersex people who are part of our community, we have different body shapes and, and different styles and all of that. And so, these designers understand that these are members of our community, and they custom design, their art to fit our people's bodies, right? And so, so it's that's one way, but also, initially when we started, like the planning and the concept and thinking about what this could be, it was truly, to contrast Transgender Day of Remembrance, right? Because it is a sad day for all of us, right? Remembering and I guess reviving, how people were murdered and how people were violated in their lives. And so, although it's important to remember people, right, for us, it was more of like, we need to honor and celebrate our people while we're still here, right? And not, when we're dead, right? And so that is like really the whole intention. And again, fashion it's something that is part of our culture, right? Our trans and queer community's culture. And so we want to make sure that, it was a venue to uplift and highlight our people's arts as well.
And I see a lot of similarities between GARRAS and the ballroom scene, for example. I mean, we've always gathered and shown our unique styles and creations alongside one another in a celebration when we weren't allowed to celebrate elsewhere. And I think fashion is a really powerful vehicle, because it wasn't that long ago that we could be arrested for not having, 2 or 3 items of clothing of our assigned sex at birth. So to be able to stand there, not only just as trans folks, but as trans Latinos, to stand together and be able to share that joyously is just so great. And hearing how the TransLatin Coalition creates these spaces of total acceptance where trans folks can show up fully and safely, it really resonates with what we're building here at Transgender Zone. Both of us are creating environments where trans folks can go from isolation to community, and where they develop skills in leadership. So what do you think trans people need first when first finding community, whether that's walking into a drop-in center like yours or an online space like ours?
I definitely want to say that I do agree with the similarities between the house and ball scene and communities, right? And the space that we're creating. And, you know, the work that we do as an organization really is to to change the livelihood of all transgender, expansive, and intersex people, right? And of course, we center trans Latino people, right? But our macro level work and even our service provision, right, really is designed and dedicated to all of our communities. Um, and, you know, it's important for us to be able to create spaces, right, that are specifically dedicated to uplift the livelihood of our communities, right? Because um, there hasn't been spaces, right, that are created and led by us, right? And we can see that it has only probably been in the past 10 to 15 years, you know, that there has been an empowerment of our community, right?
Right.
That there has been like this leadership development that has happened in our community that has allowed for different translate spaces, right? And because of that, obviously, you know, that's that's why we are where we are at this moment politically, right? Because
Right.
this notion of integration of ourselves into our society, right, is what they want to stop, right? And you know, whether it's online or whether it's in presence, right? Like these spaces are sacred to our communities, right? Because
Yeah.
these are the places to where we can be who we are, where we can um, ask for what we need. At least here at our organization, right? Every single person who comes into our organization, we assess what their needs are, right? And we support them based on those needs, right? Many members of our community who come here have a lot of needs, right? It could be housing, it could be employment, it could be, or the lack of, right? It could be, you know, access to health services, just different things, right? Or people who are getting out of prison or immigration detention who,
Right.
who need the basic things, right? And we try to condition our services based on that need, right? And that is why GARRAS is critical, right, to our work and to support our community because, well, the money that we fundraise, not just through GARRAS, but through other, donations and things like that that come through our website, that is unrestricted money that we can dedicate to support our community directly, right?
Right.
And so, that's why it's important for us to create those spaces to not just to empower ourselves, our community, but also to be able to fundraise for our own people as well. And
Yeah.
that's why, involving our partners and our allies, as they call them, right? It's critically important because, it's an opportunity for them to step up and to support who we are as people and who we are as an organization.
Makes me so happy that you provide all of that because it's such a big need. I mean, I know personally when people join our space, there's also a lot of need where people might be joining in the middle of a crisis. And personally, I find that one of the first things that people need is to see other people like them. I mean, to be able to walk in, and if someone gets to meet you, Bamby, and walk in and see all that you've been through, maybe you've read about you, seen you on interviews and whatever else, that Liberty Mutual ad, girl, I saw you there. But they get to hear your story and walk in and be greeted with people with open arms and see that they're not alone, that they're not crazy, that they're not, it's not their back up against a wall. All of the work that you've put in has created such a a massive difference, not only just in West Hollywood, but in general. That visibility is so important. So the TransLatin Coalition, it started, if I'm correct, in 2009. Yes.
Hmm?
Yeah, it started with you calling a meeting, and it was all volunteer work for about 6 years. And now you're the largest trans-led organization in the country. Again, congratulations, serving over 8,000 people annually with housing, legal services, healthcare, so much more, as you just mentioned. What did those early years of TLC teach you about what our community actually needs versus what mainstream organizations think that we need?
The TransLatin Coalition started because of a need, right? And I think it's a combination of my own lived personal experiences, right? I am a survivor of the carceral system and immigration detention, right? I was detained in immigration detention. I was brutally assaulted to the point to where I had to be transported to an outside hospital to be treated. Um,
Goodness.
and so I lived and experienced that. And at that time, I also saw how our sisters were treated when we were in immigration detention. And so, because I had the opportunity to survive that, right, I had gotten out and I was already, empowered enough, right, to, because I had already been organizing in my community for several years at that time. And so for me, it was like, what can I do to support our people, right? That are still inside, that are being mistreated, and they're being violated in different ways. And so I just gather a group of my friends, right, and say like, what can we do, right? And so initially, I was working. I had a job, and that was sort of like, helping me with my basic things, right? And initially we were doing volunteer work, and we were doing visitations. We were fundraising little money, to put money in their books. We were connecting people who were inside with lawyers outside, because that was one of the issues too. Um, and then, we were doing advocacy and writing letters for them, and really, and doing campaigns, to get them out, for the injustices. Um, and then when they would get out, we would connect them to services, right? But over time, we were seeing that, despite that work that we were doing nationally, um, our community was not having access to the services that they needed, right?
Right.
A lot of times, different organizations like LGBTQ centers, for instance, they do have trans programming, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we're in those spaces, oftentimes we're also, kept in the margins, right? Like, we're not decision makers. We only can support our community on a way that is limiting, right? And so,
Right.
um, as we were seeing that across the nation, we then decided that we needed to move into doing service provision. And so I left my beautiful and amazing job at that time, my well-paid job, and I took a leap of faith, and I dedicated myself to build the service provision of the TransLatin Coalition, which, it was the idea was to build a model here in Los Angeles that other chapters could replicate. And we got our first official grant in January 2016, and we started building little by little. And now there's different organizations that are part of our coalition, in New York, for instance, in Florida, and Texas, in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, or our DMV chapter, and Georgia. So there's different um, centers that provide services to our community. Not
Wow.
as big as here in LA, but that the idea is being realized, right? Like, the dream is being realized, and it's being a a long struggle, but we are confident that we're going to continue to do the best that we can to provide and uplift the livelihood of our community.
That is so uplifting. The fact that you are spread across that many states is so fantastic. And personally, on a more personal note, Bamby, I feel like our stories have a lot of similarities, and I haven't really shared much of this publicly, but there was a time when I struggled with a substance abuse disorder, and I was put in the men's ACI as a result of that. And this is post PREA. Now, that's the Prison Rape Elimination Act for anyone listening that might be unfamiliar, but it's because of work of people like you that I was able to be kept safe, and that I was able to, although it was a terrifying experience, terrifying ordeal, I've been able to make it out safe. And in that moment, I also felt sort of a calling that there are so many other people that weren't as lucky as I was and haven't been able to make it out like that. So I continued to build my platform, and eventually it kind of got to a breaking point where, like you leaving your job, my husband had to leave his job, or chose to leave his job as, his cushy consulting job, to help build Transgender Zone and give back to the community. And there's really nothing like it. It's not easy, especially early on. There's a lot of rice and beans, which we love rice and beans, but after a while it starts to get a little old. So there's a lot of that, but it comes out on the other side. But being that we're in the time and space that we are right now and are facing so many attacks, I can only imagine being, especially a trans youth right now. And I want to be real about what's going on right now. TLC just lost $1.5 million in funding, and you've had to close 2 centers. You've been called a radical organization by members of Congress, which, let's be honest, it's pretty easy to be called radical at this point. Yet you're still building a 3-story headquarters in Hollywood. Unbelievable. You secured $7 million in trans-led services, and GARRAS keeps on growing. How do you hold both the reality of these attacks and the defiant joy of celebration? What's keeping you going? It's a big question, I know.
Yeah, no, it is quite a bit. But for me personally, right, I feel that I have survived whatever you have thrown to me, right? I survived the streets, homelessness, drug addiction, prison, immigration detention. Like, I have been beaten up, like had guns pointed to my head, right? Like, sexual assault, both on the streets and in prison, and like, I don't know, whatever you can think of, like, I survived it. And I feel that for me personally, like, I've been here before, and I've come, I overcome, right? And I think it's also true for our community, right? Like, if we think on, when I started my transition, for instance, right? Like, when I first landed here in Los Angeles, I was 18, right? And that's when I started my transition, right? And I'm talking about the 80s, right? Back then, there was nothing for us. I mean, nothing. The only thing that we had was each other and the streets.
Yes.
And, fast forward, right? Like, we have built and we have organized and we have, mobilized and created spaces for our people, right? And so they're not, like, whatever they're doing it out of the spite, because they're unhappy, because they're miserable. They hate us because we're truthful to ourselves, right?
Yes.
And, because we have a light that they want to, I guess, shut off, but they will never be able to, right? And so that's my belief, right? They can try, but they will not be able to. And, what helps me truly is, my spirituality, right?
Right.
And I also feel like, I have a responsibility to our people, right? And I try to portray, you know, that strength, right? In whatever way I can, you
Mm.
know, whether it's through social media or, or even here, like, there's 64 of us that work here, right? And, you know, it's, it's, it's hard to keep people's morals, right? If
Right.
you're not living by example,
Yes.
right? And
I was
so,
actually, sorry to interrupt you here, but I was actually just having a conversation myself with actually Dr. Christine McGinn from the Papillon Center. And she was saying, how are you? How's everything going? And I was like, oh, things are great. Things are fine personally. But she said, I admire your optimism because things are really rough right now. And I said, as leaders in the space, yourself included, Bambi, there's a certain almost responsibility to keep a stiff upper lip that we feel because we have been through so much as a community and people look to us as that example. So although yeah, it's terrifying and I am just as affected by it as anybody else. There are a lot of days where I think about a young me. I know I started my transition at the age of 14. I can't imagine what would happen if hormones were ripped away from me. And I don't want to imagine. And that really still touches me. But there are people that look to us as that model. Your personal journey, Bambi, is extraordinary. And I know there's been real hardship in it, as we discussed. You often say that you see yourself as a servant to people rather than just a leader. What could you talk about what servant leadership looks like to you and how your own experiences shaped the way that you show up at TLC and for the community?
yeah, I mean, I guess, just going back a little bit about what you said in terms of, people taking away, things from us, right? But
Mm.
I also want to say that we also can create, right? Like we can create our own paths of supporting one another, right? And that is why fundraising is important for us, right? Um, we can, create, mutual aids, right, to support
Right.
our people, right? Like whether it's hormones or whatever. Like I said, right? Like back in the 80s, there was nothing for us, right? Like
At
we had
all.
to create our own stuff. And so, there are models out there, right? That we we have to think about, and like we as an organization are kind of like also, like um, trying to build, right?
Mm.
Like I can name a model, for instance, right? Like something that the Black Panther Party did, right?
Great
Like they
example.
had their own school. They provided meals to people. They had their own clinics. You know what I mean? Like so, and that is why our government, uh, you know, essentially, destroyed that movement, right? Because
Mm.
they were they were going against what they wanted to build, or they were trying to build, and that is what they're essentially trying to do to our community as well, right? And when I say community, not just trans people but people of color, right? Like we're seeing that what's happening with immigration, right? Like
Yeah.
they are seeing that particularly the Latino community, where we're gaining power, right, in our society here, and they want to obviously dismantle that, and that is a way that they're doing that. And so, you know again, this is something that is not new for us, right?
Right.
This is something that we have experienced and that we have to find a way to overcome, and we will. And but for me, that as as a leader of an organization, as someone who is part of the community,
Mm.
who has overcome and all of these things, and had the opportunity to overturn these horrific experiences into opportunities, I also feel that I have a responsibility, right? Because simply because I feel like I am one of the chosen few, right? That has been able to survive this, because I know many people, members of our community, who unfortunately are no longer with us, right? Um, that perish, right? Because of the stupidity that we experience in the world. Yet I'm still here, right? And with that, I feel that there's also responsibility, and um, I I always want to be um, I always want to be humble. You know what I mean? Like I always want to. That's why I'm public about who I am and about my experiences, right? Um, because it's, to me, is just normal, right? It's normal that I understand where I come from, and that I also don't forget where I come from, right?
Right.
You know, many people think of me, like I go to different places and people says to me, like, oh, like, you're a celebrity or whatever. And I'm like, no, like, uh, you may think I am, but I don't think of myself in that way, right?
Right.
In fact, I am the CEO of this large organization, um, but my definition of a CEO is community elevated officer, right?
Ooh, I
Because
love that.
it has been my community who has uplifted me to be where I am today, right? And so for me, it's like always, I always think of our people, and like, just to be completely honest, like, I am the CEO of a multi-million-dollar organization, and my salary is not of, what typically would be, right? And
Yes.
I rather I rather cut my salary and give an opportunity for someone to um, perhaps have some employment, And so
That's,
that's just, I always want to, to me, it's like putting people first.
yeah. That's the kind of leadership that we need. And it's the kind of leadership that we're lacking in higher places like our government and have been severely lacking for pretty much our entire lifetimes. But it's because of leadership like yours that people can actually get the help that they need, whether that's mutual aid or whatever else. You've said something that I love in addition to your acronym for CEO, and you've said, Yo soy un milagro, I am a miracle. After, as we discussed, surviving homelessness, assault, incarceration, and overdose, as a trans woman myself, I, of course, have my own storied past, like we discussed, and I've made it my mission to share trans stories like your own. What would you say to young trans people or trans people in general who are in the middle of their own survival story right now?
I would say that I hope, or my wish, is that hope will lead uh, your path, right? And that as long as you walk your path with love and grace and candor, um, you will get to whatever you want to get, right? And as long as you continue to be the beautiful person that you are, right? Yes, there could be bumps on the path or on the road, as we say, right? But we always have to believe that there is a better tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? Um, and I would also say not to give up on yourself or our people, right? There are so many people and organizations like the TransLatin Coalition that is fighting for all of us, right? And so, um, most importantly, don't give up on yourself, and understand that there will be a better tomorrow, and try to keep the joy in whatever way that you're able to, right? Like if it's through music, through song, through being creative, through being who you are, period.
Right.
I would say just find your niche, find your path, walk your path with grace and love, and we will overcome.
It's so important right now, especially, and our community has been through so much. Our community is remarkably resilient considering how hard they try to get rid of us. They never, ever will. So let's end on this, something a little more upbeat. When someone comes to GARRAS on November 15th and they buy a ticket, they donate and they support TLC, what are they actually building towards? What's your vision for what trans life could look like when we're not just surviving, but we're actually thriving?
Well, the work that we do as an organization truly is to build and create a better future for all transgender, expansive, and intersex communities, right? And so when someone, comes to GARRAS, or, even if they're not able to come and they make a donation, right? Like, understand that your contribution will save a trans life, right? In different ways. But if you're able to come to our events, right, you are going to see the power that we have as a community, as people. You're going to see amazing designs, amazing people modeling, amazing performances, and just a great community gathering that is sending a message that our existence is our resistance, right? And that we're here and we will always be here.
Thank you so much, Bamby. Girl, I'm going to have to hop on a flight down to WeHo because that looks like so much fun.
It is. I would definitely encourage that. So please, if you have the ability, come through. I'm sure Ashley can work with you. And yeah, again, we have different people who are going to be coming to our event. So we'll be honored if you can join us.
Thank you so much, Bamby. And thank you so much for spending your time with us. I really want to get the word out about this. And for anyone who wants to donate, buy a ticket to GARRAS, we have it all linked down below. You can go to the TransLatin Coalition.org or to garras.org to go ahead and purchase. That's on November 15th at the Pacific Design Center in West Hollywood. Thank you so much, Bamby, for joining us. And I hope you have a fabulous day.
Thank you. You too, dear. And many blessings to all the people who are watching us or listening to us. Thank you.
That was Bamby Salcedo, founder and CEO of the TransLatin Coalition. Thank you so much, Bamby, for your time. That was such a wonderful conversation. If you're in California, grab some tickets to the 11th annual GARRAS Fashion Show. You can go to garras.org or to TransLatinCoalition.org and grab tickets. That'll all be linked down below. Every dollar goes directly to supporting trans lives through housing, legal services, and so much more. And honestly, whether you can make it to GARRAS or not, the TransLatin Coalition needs your support right now. They just lost $1.5 million in funding, and they still serve over 8,000 people annually. So Bamby's message is clear. If you have the resources, put your money where your mouth is. Donate, support, speak out today. For those of you in the Transgender Zone community, I hope this conversation provided a reminder of why spaces like ours matter, why they need to exist. Whether it's a digital space like ours or an in-person drop-in center like the TransLatin Coalition, we're all essentially building the same thing. A place where trans folks can connect authentically, learn together, and grow our power. If you are not a member of Transgender Zone already, I highly encourage you to click down below or go to transgenderzone.com and sign up. We are the first ever trans-owned, trans-only online learning community where you can make real progress on your transition, get live expert guidance, and make real friends. As Bamby says, our existence is resistance. So until I see you next time, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the community.